So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Province of West Lancashire Provincial Office webinar. I hope you're all safe and well. I'd like to offer a special welcome to those joining from Metropolitan Grand Lodge, other provinces, and especially to those watching on YouTube Live. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. My name is Andrew Rydell, and I'm the Provincial Deputy Grand Secretary. So, to today's session. The George Washington Masonic National Memorial overlooks Washington, D.C., and it is fitting that arguably the most prominent and iconic Masonic building in America is dedicated to probably the most famous Freemason in history. I was reminded about the memorial when I was watching the presidential inaugurations in January, specifically with some of the language used in the obligations, and I thought it would be timely to learn more about it. With yesterday, the 22nd of February, being the 289th anniversary of Washington's birth, it is all the more opportune. So to tell us more, it's a pleasure to welcome, direct from Alexandria, Virginia, Worshipful Brother Shawn Eyer, Director of Communications at the Memorial and a specialist in the development of Freemasonry in the 17th and 18th centuries. Shawn, thank you for being here. Welcome to the province of West Lancashire. I've said far too much already, so without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, I'll hand straight over to you.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and everyone. Thank you for being here for this presentation. I'm sorry there's a little bit of or a lot of sunlight on me, but I'll be sharing my screen so that you'll be seeing slides instead of just looking over here at me. It's been my pleasure to be part of the George Washington Masonic National Memorial for a number of years. And are you seeing my slide now?
Yes, we are.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And we'll go to the full screen. Okay, so now you should see only the slides. I've been here at the George Washington Masonic National Memorial for about 9 years, coming up on 9 years. And it is a very special place, and it's my privilege to be able to tell you about it and about its history and about what we're up to today. For those of you who've never caught a glimpse of the memorial before, this is what it looks like. And this is one of my favorite pictures of the memorial because it shows the memorial within its context in the community. So you can get a sense of the immediate surroundings of the building. And also you see people going up to visit it, which is one of the most important things for us. Is we're not meant to be an architectural statement. We're meant to be a place that is visited and experienced and enjoyed by both Masons and members of the general public. The setting of the memorial, this is a picture of our airport, and then across the Potomac River into DC and the National Mall area. Of course, you'll recognize some of the major landmarks of Washington, DC in this. We're about 5 miles south of Washington Airport. It's called Washington Reagan Airport. And it's very convenient for people who are flying in to visit the memorial. From the airport, you just get on one of our metro lines, and in 2 or 3 stops, it will deliver you to the base of our building. There's a metro stop just outside. I can look down and I see it through the window behind me. And of course, this is another shot of the National Mall. So when you come to visit the George Washington Masonic National Memorial, there are other things very nearby that you can also visit if you've never had a chance to. You can get a lot of value out of your travels to the DC metro area. There are other Masonic buildings that are quite of interest, as well here in the area. And this is, we have 2 of them here, especially the one on the left is an outstanding one to visit. It's the House of the Temple of our Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite, which is a major Masonic body here in the United States. And I didn't want to skip out on the Jefferson Memorial, which is a beautiful place to visit, a Palladian architecture just a few miles north of us here at the memorial, and the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument. So the immediate setting of the memorial is a town to the south of DC. It actually used to be part of DC at one time, and it's called Alexandria, Virginia. DC actually grew out of Alexandria rather than vice versa. Alexandria is a beautiful town with a lot of tradition and a lot of beauty. And this is what it's like on the streets of Alexandria. It's a favorite place for tourists to come and enjoy the shops and the sites, the tourist sites. There are many, many historical sites in town. This is a shot of our waterfront. This is a shot of Gadsby's Tavern and Museum. Up on the second story of that museum is a place where one of the lodges here used to meet, that George Washington was the charter master of, became the charter master of. And this is Christ Church, where George Washington attended church. It's the same building as the one he walked into. It's not been rebuilt. And this is just another view of the streets of Alexandria as, you know, a tourist destination. And it's a very pleasant one. South of us, about 8 miles south, is George Washington's estate, Mount Vernon, which also makes a wonderful and typically rather relaxing visit in comparison to the busier sites of DC. Not to say that they don't get many visitors, which they do. They get quite a few visitors, but there's a lot of space. And then across the way, there are some hotels and so on. That's on the other side of the Potomac. Here's someone sailing on the Potomac, and you can see the memorial there in the background. So the memorial, a little bit about its construction. The memorial started as a dream here in Alexandria, and it's more than a local Masonic project. It involved the entire nation. All of the Grand Lodges in the United States banded together in order to create it. In 1910, an association was formed that wished to build what they called a suitable memorial temple to George Washington, the Freemason. And this is the result. This picture of the memorial would be around 1931 or 32. And you see up in the tower that you can see through the tower. It's still hollow, right? But they have completed the superstructure of the building and the exterior. This is an interesting picture that shows the different tops that were proposed for the memorial, with the final one in the center. So a lot of design went into both the memorial building and the landscaping around the memorial. It was in 1923 that the cornerstone of the memorial was placed. And here's an image showing that. Now, ironically, well, I guess it's not really ironically. I've got to stop slightly misusing that word the way so many of us do. It's a trend, right? Interestingly, perhaps, where I'm sitting right now is in this picture up along the wooden railing that you see there at the upper left of the photo. That's actually where I'm at. It gives me a little, it's strange, right? It's strange to think about that. The cornerstone laying ceremony for the memorial was a fantastic Masonic event. You see here the parade, the solid parade going all the way down King Street to the Potomac. That's 1 mile's worth of people marching the parade route. And here you see an aerial photo of the cornerstone dedication ceremony. The temple is, the foundations and the first floor are basically in place. And you see the bleachers and the crowd gathering. And here's a close-up of the Grand Lodge and the Grand Lodge members and dignitaries enjoying the moment of laying the cornerstone in 1923. This is the result. This is a modern photo that I took of the memorial from the roof of a nearby hotel. It has our our building has quite an architectural presence. One of the things that inspired the building's architecture as a figurative lighthouse is that we're in the Virginia city of Alexandria. Now, sometimes people will say that the building is designed to look like the lighthouse at Alexandria. And those of you who are interested in history, you may already have some ideas of what the lighthouse at Alexandria looked like. It's relatively well understood what it looked like. This does not look like that, but it is patterned after the lighthouse at Ostia. So it is patterned after another ancient lighthouse, a Roman lighthouse. And today it's a very popular place for people to visit. Even during we were closed for a number of months, completely closed during the pandemic, the early months of the pandemic. We've reopened with a limited number of people allowed inside at any given time. And of course, masking and social distancing as one would expect. When you enter the memorial, this is the space in which you're welcomed. It's called Memorial Hall. And it's the heart of our building. It represents the core of our mission. You see Washington standing in the west of the hall, looking toward the east. Conveniently, King Street, which is the street that leads up to the memorial, is on an east-west alignment. So the memorial faces due east down along the axis of King Street. And there are a couple of times a year when the sunrise is perfectly aligned for that geometry, and it's quite splendid if you happen to be in the memorial at dawn, which is few people ever are, but it's quite a thing to witness. People enter this space, and it immediately reminds them, I think, of the experience of entering a place like the Jefferson Memorial or the Lincoln Memorial. Curiously, in DC itself, there's nothing like this. We have the Washington Monument, which is an obelisk, and the experience of that is to get a ticket and go in the elevators to the top and see the view from the top, and then you leave. But there's no temple, so to speak, to Washington in DC. So the Masons built this. It's not a federal building, as you would, I'm certain that you've all already imagined. This was built by the Freemasons of the United States using contributions that they raised themselves. No government funds were used in the creation or maintenance of our building. I thought you might enjoy seeing a photograph of the sculpture before it was actually cast. And this is the sculptor, Bryant Baker, who was born in the UK, but his career as a sculptor took place here in the United States. And you can see a lot of the character of the statue, the personality of the statue in this old photo. The statue was created in the late 1940s and then installed on Washington's birthday, which was February 22nd is Washington's birthday. So today we're on the day after. 1950, February 22nd, that statue was installed in our Memorial Hall. And it just has a striking presence. It has a lot of symbolism that means a great deal to us as Masons. Of course, you see a past master's jewel around Washington's neck. That's an ancient style past master's jewel, so it's different from the past master's jewel with which most of you are familiar. This tends to be the past master's jewel in the United States, where the ancients ended up the dominant form of Freemasonry. You see directly above his head, there's a sunburst, and he's also, of course, as you noticed, wearing a Masonic apron in this statue, and it is actually modeled after a Masonic apron that Washington himself owned and used. Along the sides, the colonnade of the main memorial hall here at the George Washington Masonic National Memorial, there are two very large oil paintings, murals. And these are extremely educational. When you come through for a tour, our tour guides will spend a good deal of time pointing out some details of these murals. And what they show us are the two largest Masonic events that we know George Washington attended. The top one is Washington's visit to Christ Church in Philadelphia in 1778, which of course was during the war. And then the bottom one is George Washington laying the cornerstone of the United States Capitol in 1793. So let's take a look at each one individually for just a moment. So let me give you a little bit of background on this picture. The Grand Lodge, the ancients Grand Lodge, the moderns lodges still existed in 1778 in Philadelphia, but they were generally inactive, and we don't have much in the way of records of what they were doing. Essentially, their period of activity stopped at the Revolution, and if not somewhat rather before the Revolution. They did not cease to exist, but they became, they hibernated, as you might say it. The Ancients Grand Lodge was prevented from meeting for a time. The city of Philadelphia was under military occupation, and the Revolution eventually caused Philadelphia to come back into the control of the Continental Army. And at that time, the Grand Lodge, if this was earlier in the year of 1778, the Grand Lodge began to make plans to have their Feast of St. John the Evangelist as a restart for the Grand Lodge. And it just so happens that Washington came into Philadelphia just a few days before this event was going to take place, and they sent a delegation of Masons to invite him to come, and he did so. So this was Monday morning at 9 a.m. December 28th, 1778. They didn't meet on the 27th as it was a Sunday. They chose to move the observance of St. John's Day to Monday morning, the 28th. 300 people attended, 300 Masons attended, which makes it the largest Masonic gathering up to that point in the New World. And Washington, of course, was the guest of honor. We look a little closer at this painting and we see to the left, one of my favorite Freemasons, the priest, William Smith. You know, that's one of those names where you're just begging to be forgotten by history. William Smith. There are so many William Smiths. And within Masonic history, there are several William Smiths. Anyway, this is an individual who was deeply involved in the reform of higher education in the American colonies and later the early American Republic. A bitter opponent of Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin devoted years of his life to trying to utterly destroy William Smith and even have him jailed quite unfairly for a sermon that he gave. And anyway, I get sidetracked by talking about William Smith because I find him so very fascinating. He's just one of these characters that gets forgotten. But before I leave the subject of him, if you're really interested in Masonic history and how things played out in the whole debate between the ancients and moderns, William Smith, you know, Benjamin Franklin published the first Masonic constitutions in the New World, which was an almost direct duplication of Anderson's constitutions of 1723. That was back in 1734 that Franklin did that. There was no other published book of constitutions in America until William Smith in 1783 published his edition of Lawrence Dermot's A Hemon Razon, which was the Ancients Book of Constitutions. And his was not just a copy. It is truly an American adaptation of the Ancients Book of Constitutions. So he's culturally important, both in American history and in Masonic history, even though he's rather difficult to research. I'm working on bringing that up to date a little bit. Let's look at the next mural. This is what we at the memorial, if you come on a tour, we proudly say that this is the most significant Masonic event in the history of the United States. That is George Washington and hundreds of his Masonic brethren in their finest regalia coming together at the site, the future site of the US Capitol building, to Masonically consecrate the cornerstone of that structure, which is more than a building, of course. It's the seat of government of a new nation and a new kind of nation. Here you see the central tableau of this with what we see is Washington being presented with a silver plate, and the writing on that silver plate was recorded elsewhere. You can read that. It includes some Masonic references. And off to the side, which you can not see in this tight shot, are the Masons holding the corn, wine, and oil, which would be deposited on the plate and the cornerstone as part of the consecration ceremony. Of course, many of you, if not all of you, are familiar with that ceremony. And if you're not, it's easy to go and learn about how cornerstones are consecrated. This is I don't know how widespread it is in the UK for these things to still be done, but in the United States, it's been a strong tradition that's only recently become rather rare. Many, many public buildings, whether it's a city hall, a school, a fire station, library, you name it, they often will have, at the laying of the cornerstone, they will often have Masons come and be part of that ceremony. Also within the memorial, we have many smaller spaces within the memorial, which the tour groups explore. And this is one of them. It's called the Replica Lodge Room, and it's a replica of the lodge room in Alexandria, where in 1910 the leaders of American Masonry met and decided to build the memorial. That lodge room no longer exists, although the building itself still exists. The lodge room itself has been turned into office space for the city of Alexandria. In this room, we show a replica of one of George Washington's aprons. It's, I'm going to show you a photo actually of the apron itself. This is not the replica, this is the apron itself. We don't have this on open display. It's property of the Alexandria Lodge number 22. They keep it in storage because it's in very fragile condition. It's a silk apron that was manufactured in France at the conclusion of the American Revolution. And if you look closely at the symbolism in the center, it's a symbol really of the partnership of the American states and the French government in bringing the United States into existence. And it's a perfect gift for George Washington, who believed very strongly in the concept of divine providence. And here you see symbols of divine providence unified with these national symbols. And above them, very delicately tied to that ribbon, is a gavel hanging in repose, which is if this is not a symbol of accomplishment in terms of what they sought to do in their alliance, it's just an amazing thing. It's almost a psychological picture of the way George Washington contextualized the revolution in providential terms. So the next thing I want to show you, and you can explore this more on your own than we're going to do live here, because it will work. It should work okay live for a couple of previews, but it will work more smoothly on your machines at your computer. I still say machines. to refer to a computer. Okay, anyway, that used to be a normal thing, but I don't know if you still say that. I've heard that it confuses some people hear someone refer to a computer as a machine and they find it very strange. Well, it is a machine. Sorry. Okay, so anyway, on your computers at home, you may visit this page on our website. It's really easy to find. It's under the Plan Your Visit section, and it just says Virtual Tour. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to change the screen share, and I'm going to show you how some of these virtual tours work. Going to the virtual tour. Okay, so now you should all see the virtual tour page.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so using this, I developed this in the early months of the pandemic because we were simply closed. We were unable to fulfill our mission in any significant way. And when you enter this, this is all done with some special equipment that uses infrared scanning combined with a large number of high resolution photos to create a real 3D experience of visiting the memorial. And you can't walk around everywhere, but you can see many of the most important sites. And oh wait, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this full screen so you can see it better. Are you all seeing it a little better now? Okay,
yes,
good.
yeah, we can see it full screen now.
Thank you. Okay, so it works on any computer. It works on iPads and phones, but I would recommend a computer or an iPad. You can really stand in the portico and experience the what it's like to be in the vestibule of the building. Of course, that's looking out over King Street, and you can look up and all around you. The only places you can't see are directly below you and directly above you because the camera does not have eyes there. So let's just walk through. Let's pretend we're tourists and we're coming in. And here they'll sell you a ticket, which is $18 US. And here we have lists of people who are donors to the memorial. And you can get a sense from this of, see, there's the presence of those murals. There's the mural on the other side. You see George Washington there, and so on. And we're going to leave this one in a moment, but I'll just go up closer to the statue. And you just can, I hope you can see here an overall impression of what the space is like. Now let's take a look at one of the other levels in the memorial. As you can see, we have several lodge rooms. We have many exhibits. I'm going to go next to one of the best exhibits that we have in the they're all really interesting. This one is architecturally very beautiful, and it has quite a few things of tremendous interest. This is on our 4th floor, and it's called the George Washington Museum. And of course, it has a similar statue of Washington there. One of the items that we have here, and I'll go right on over here, is we have the Washington Family Bible here. And this is an interesting Bible because I'm told it's the first Bible published in the United States, because prior to the Revolution, it was actually we were not able to publish Bibles here. They had to be imported. So this is actually a byproduct of the Revolution. And Washington is listed in the back as the first of many sponsors of this edition of the Bible. There are quite a few other things of great interest here in this thing. I'm going to go up to the 2nd floor. Wow, if only it was that easy in real life. You just zoom right up to the 2nd floor. And we can see here, there's a marvelous exhibit up here on the 2nd floor on the construction of the memorial. And we saw some pictures that were similar to that, looking at the cornerstone and so on. And I want to show you a beautiful letter that we received from the English Grand Lodge at the completion of the memorial's construction. They sent this beautiful letter. And one of the nice things about the virtual tour is how resolute the photos are. You really can zoom in on things and read them pretty well. So this is on behalf of the Most Worshipful Grand Master. And it says here in this central paragraph, "We share your pride in Washington as a man since he came of good English stock." I think that's a very diplomatic way to put it. And then at the end, the last paragraph, it says, we would that it had been possible for any of us to accept the personal invitations so courteously and kindly extended to us. You know, I guess they couldn't come, but that's okay. Look at this amazing, beautiful document. And this is the folder. I don't know. I don't even like to call it a folder. I don't know what you call it. It's just a gigantic folding object that it came in with an original portrait of Washington, a reproduction of this portrait of Washington as a Mason nested within it. And it's just a delight. And under normal circumstances, hundreds of people see that every week here at the memorial. So I thought I would show you that because hopefully this will not make anyone dizzy, virtually going down some stairs. So as you can see, each one of these alcoves has display cases for various items. And I hope that one day you'll be able to visit this floor on your own. Right now, during the COVID emergency, the only way to visit this floor is on our guided tour system. So with that, let's see, one more space to look at. Let's look at a lodge room within our guided tour. I love how this zooms in. Okay, so this is our South Lodge room. This is the current meeting space of Alexandria, Washington Lodge number 22. And here you see the history of the lodge. It started out, it started out under a warrant from Pennsylvania. That doesn't mean they were from Pennsylvania. It's just that there was no Grand Lodge in Virginia. So the Pennsylvania Grand Lodge issued a warrant in 1783 to Brother Robert Adam, who served as master here. But then 5 years later, the Grand Lodge of Virginia, now being extant, okay, issued the lodge a new charter with George Washington listed as the charter master. It is important to understand that George Washington did not stand in the East and call the meetings to order and so on. He was not even really in Alexandria at this time. It was more of an honorary. I don't really say it was an honorary position because he was the charter master, but it was done as kind of a form of patronage of the lodge. And there was a deputy master for the lodge who handled the duties of master. The lodge has met here since the late 1940s, and they just have a very, I think that you'll agree, beautiful lodge space. It's very comfortable, and this is a wonderful lodge to visit when you come to the area. And then as we step out here, you can see the antechambers and so on of the lodge. So they had this was from a parade where they marched, they had this on a vehicle and it came through the streets of Alexandria. They even have, I call this past master jail. Okay, so that's my little joke. But they have a gallery for all their past master portraits. I need to redo the scan so the faces aren't blurred. I'll do that sometime in the future because the software has a feature to protect people's privacy by blurring faces if it thinks it's a face. But in this case, we'd like to have the faces of the members visible. And as you can see, the lodge is carrying forward into the present day very, very well. All right, so that's enough of a preview for the virtual tour. I hope that any of you who would like to have a look around the memorial during this period in which travel is so difficult and visiting is so limited, that you'll make use of this to get a sense of what it's like to come here. Now I'm going to stop sharing this screen and go back over to our main presentation. Okay. So this, whoops, this is the view from the top of the memorial. We have an observation deck up on the 9th level. And as you can see, it looks out over the city of Alexandria. That's the Potomac River. It's looking down King Street, which is that east-aligned street. And looks out over the Potomac River. And then on the other side there, directly across from King Street, that is the District of Columbia. And then beyond that, the state of Maryland. At night, the memorial, one of the things that we've done as part of our, you've probably already done the math and realized if our cornerstone was laid in 1923, we must be getting ready for something. And yes, indeed we are. So for the last number of years, we've been engaged very deeply in a project to restore the building. So we've been doing a lot of fundraising and so on to make improvements. And there have been just some wonderful results. In a way, it's a minor part of the restoration, the lighting of the building, but has a major impact. We're installing new lights all at each level of the building, and they can all be controlled separately in terms of the color combinations. And it's really, the building was already a spectacular view at night, but now we can really draw the eye to the building and its mission through the special lighting that is available. Now, how do those lights get up there, you might be wondering? This guy puts them up there. His name's Dennis. He's wonderful, and he gets the job done. He's our electrician. And of course, I'm the lunatic that goes up there with him and takes the picture out on the ledge. But, you know, sometimes you need some fresh air. Here's another example. These are all LED arrays. They use a lot less electricity than the old types of lights. And again, they're color selectable. We're also engaged, you know, we had, for some years, we had scaffolding up on the tower. And what we were doing, here you see some operative stonemasons, and they're actually filling in cracks that had appeared in the stone facade. They had a special composite that they could put in there that will last so that water does not get into the building and cause damage. And as you can imagine, there's a great, I don't know that we've ever calculated what the surface area of the temple is, but it is huge. It's a huge amount of area to make sure that every crack is sealed, but they've done an amazing job. And you can really tell the difference. For those who are interested in perhaps becoming part of helping us make these repairs to the memorial and restorations and all the things that we're doing leading up in the next few years to our cornerstone rededication and beyond, I have made a page for us. You'll see the address there, and it's going to be distributed separately. But it's gwmemorial.org/pages/UK-webinar. And if you do make a gift through this page, it will be recorded that it was as a result of this webinar.
I've actually just put that link in the chat as well, and on YouTube as well. So if people are dying to do that sooner rather than later, they can do.
Well, thank you very kindly for the opportunity to share what we're doing. And we're so grateful for all of the people who have helped us around the world in accomplishing these goals. Another thing I'd like to mention, since we're talking about the Cornerstone rededication, if you wish, you may want to start thinking about attending. We intend to make this date, of course, the best laid plans of mice and men, right? 2020 taught us that. But we're, barring something similar to COVID, this event is going to take place Monday, February 20th, 2023. We plan a national level Masonic event at the memorial, rededicating the cornerstone. There will not have been anything like this on our side of the pond in generations. We have not really had a national Masonic event in a long, long time in the United States. Of course, I know that in 2017, right, you were able to have such a gathering. You were able to bring people together to celebrate an incredible landmark. And this would be a tiny echo of that. But we hope to have a really spectacular event. The actual order of the event, we know that there will be a parade. We know that there will be many special presentations and a banquet and so on. But the details are still being worked out. We simply have announced the date so that those who wish may begin to pencil this into their calendars and perhaps make tentative plans of how exactly they might be part of it. So here's a view of Alexandria that I took from the bridge at sunset one night, the beginning of sunset. And you can see how the George Washington Masonic National Memorial nestles in this beautiful old community. It really is a lighthouse. It's a source of Masonic light. It's a beacon reminding everyone of the importance of what George Washington set his mind to do, and through the integrity that he had as an individual, he was able to accomplish things that have made a spectacular difference in the world, even lasting to today. It's a beautiful place, and it's just a privilege to work here, and it's a true honor to be able to discuss the memorial with all of you today. So that's my conclusion. I've placed some information here, which you'll also have available to you through through Andrew's help. All of my contact information that you would need is there. Our website address again is there, and the contribution link is on display. So everyone, thank you very kindly. And at this point, my presentation is concluded. And if there's an interest in having questions, I'm certainly happy to entertain them.
Thank you so much, Shawn. It's been an absolute delight to go through it. Now, I think I'd be remiss in asking you. What are the moments that still make you go wow in the building? You know, every time that you walk in, is there something that or a particular space that you go into that just kind of gives you a tingle or a real kind of connection with the past?
Well, I live very nearby, and typically I'll walk to work, and ascending the steps in the morning, stepping through that Doric portico is, I've made a decision never to just let that be a walk that I don't appreciate. I love classical architecture, and those of you who are unfortunate enough to be my Facebook friends are familiar with my rants against modern architecture. I mean, I'm a nice guy, but all of a sudden, that's where all of a sudden my viciousness appears, and I see something I don't like, and I say, how could they build this? Okay, classical architecture I just am in love with, and it's such a blessing. It enriches my soul to experience approaching a building that's designed according to humanistic principles, right? Proportions that I consider divine, okay? I'm not saying you have to consider classical architecture as some message or whatever, but to me, it is like walking through music. And to approach the building, to pass through the portico, to enter the doors, to see the beautiful Memorial Hall, the way light plays through the hall, and the simple sentiment at the heart of it, that American Masons wish to express their gratitude for what George Washington had done. It may sound too idealistic, but to me, that is the tingle. That is the this thrill that I'm privileged to experience. And I'll tell you, if I ever find myself, if I'm at work and I'm busy and I have to get from point A to point B, and I walk through the hall and I just walk through it like it's any other room, I try to stop myself and say, hey, I'm not just walking through a mundane space. I'm walking through a place that is just stunning in its beauty. So I see a question in the chat. How many orders of architecture are represented in the building? Someone asked that. And I'll tell you, the 5 classical orders are represented in the building in different places.
That's yeah, I was coming on to that. Okay. There's also been a question in there about the celebratory event in the that's coming up in 2023. If that's going to be open kind of worldwide for Masons from all over the world to attend.
Yes,
and presumably there would be to get involved with that. There'd be something on the website in order to kind of get all the information.
There will be. And yes, it is open, and we want Freemasons from everywhere to be able to enjoy this event. I think it's going to be a once in a lifetime experience. So right now we don't have any information other than the save the date and some sketches of what we may do on that day. But our board of directors is working on the more detailed plans. We do have, for example, some arrangements with hotels and so on, but those have not been announced officially. You can't book your room yet, but information over the next year, a great deal of information is going to be posted. I would recommend, if you like to get reminders, liking our Facebook page is a good way, so that you don't have to remember to go and check the website. Any major announcements that we have get brought up on Facebook, and often repeatedly. So that's where you'll see the excitement building for that event.
How many lodges are based at the memorial, as in that is their regular meeting place? And do you get lodges coming to visit effectively that just want to meet there, once a year or something like that?
Yes, thanks. That's a wonderful question. We have 2 craft lodges that meet here as their home. Alexandria, Washington Lodge number 22, as we showed. And then there's another lodge, Andrew Jackson Lodge number 120. They meet regularly in our North Lodge room. There's also a research lodge that this is their home. And any regular lodge, any lodge that is in amity with the Grand Lodge of Virginia may meet here. So we have it open for that purpose. And I've been blessed to be able to see the work of many different jurisdictions just by walking out of my office and opening another door, and I could be in one year the Grand Lodge of Alaska opened here. So I got to be in the Grand Lodge of Alaska, jurisdictionally speaking, even though I was here in Virginia. So and we certainly encourage that kind of visitation. Now, the logistics of international visitation.
I was just trying to figure that out. I think it'd be 3 dispensations that we'd need. One from our provincial Grand Master, one from United Grand Lodge, one from the Grand Lodge of Virginia, and that would allow somebody to go and meet there if they wanted to. But I'd pass that on to my boss to deal with rather than me dealing with myself. So, other orders meet there as well? So do you have Royal Arch, Mark Lodges that meet there as well?
Well, we have in the past. In fact, the room, our North Lodge room on the old blueprints is called the cryptic room, and it was meant to be not exclusively used for the cryptic, what's called the cryptic rite. Do you say cryptic rite there?
Uh, yes, I'm just looking at Stephen Bolton. Just nod up. Yes, he's thumbs up at Stephen Bolton. He knows that kind of thing.
So, and I mean, I know you have the cryptic degrees, but I didn't know if you'd say cryptic rite. So uh, through the years, we've had quite a few of the other orders and what we call Masonic family groups, which I know that in the UK, you typically don't have the Masonic family groups like Order of the Eastern Star and so on. We have an Eastern Star chapter that that meets here on a regular basis. We'd certainly be open to having, we love to have these lodge rooms in use, whether it's a visiting group or a regular group.
Just looking through to see if there's any more questions. I mean, the compliments coming through in regards to the presentation, and I have to say it's been absolutely excellent today, and I would thank you very much for doing this. The somebody's asking about the illuminated letter from UGLE. Are there copies of that people can kind of get their hands on?
Magnificent question. There are not currently, but I will look into it.
I noticed that the picture that you mentioned that came alongside that, I know that picture from what was the drawing room at Freemasons Hall. I don't know if it's a copy of that one or if the one in the drawing room is a copy itself, but I've certainly seen the life-size version of that that picture, and it is mighty impressive. In terms of just kind of thinking of it about Washington, and the Masonic influences on the founding of the nation. Now, I don't want to go into too much detail with this, obviously, but I mentioned in the introduction about things like the obligations for the president, the vice president, and quoted a bit from the vice president's obligation, oath of office. Is that accidental just because that's appropriate language, or have there been kind of Masonic Easter eggs sewn into the foundation of the nation?
Well, there are people who believe things like that. And unless I've looked specifically into a particular thing, I don't wish to weigh in on that. But certainly, it's reasonable to see a bit of the spirit of Masonry, if not the letter of Masonry, in the structure of the early American Republic. Masonry was not the only intellectual influence on the Republic, but it was among them for certain. And so it would not surprise me if some turns of phrase from Masonic use found their way into what we do. But we also must understand that some of our Masonic phraseology is really from a more general origin as well. So that's my diplomatic way of saying either I don't recall, Senator, which is a favorite thing. When you're stuck in DC for an answer, you say, I don't recall, Senator. And you're
okay.
Certainly, we don't yet fully understand all of the ways in which Freemasonry was influential. Historians still talk about that and debate it along different lines.
Sure. I've got a question coming off the YouTube channel. Does the memorial have agreements with other areas that and that may have George Washington entities, like they're giving the example of Mount Vernon here, to be able to share memorabilia and artifacts back and forth? Is everything that you have your own, or do you have some items on loan from other places and vice versa?
We have at times, so for example, at Washington's birthday celebration in the past, we've had loan items. So Mount Vernon has one of Washington's aprons, not the one I showed you, but a different one. It's called the Mount Nebo apron. And there are times when they've permitted us to display it here. We don't do those kinds of things frequently with them, but it has been done.
Excellent. This is an interesting question which has come in on the Zoom chat, and that's regarding King Street, and the question of, is it named after a specific king, and if so, who?
It must be. I don't know the answer to that, but now I will not rest until I find out, because I walk that street every day, and how can I not know that? Wow, 9 years I've been here. I have no excuse to fail you on this question, but I will find out.
Excellent.
Yes. So one of the things, but on the subject of King Street, it's very interesting. They did not, after the Revolution, it's not just King Street. So all of the east-west axis streets, not all of them, but a large number of them. So next to King Street, there's Queen Street, there's Duke Street, there's Prince Street, there's Princess Street. Okay. And all of those stayed the same after the Revolution. They didn't say, okay, we have a new thing. We have a new way of doing everything. And now the main intersection in Alexandria, the busiest intersection in Old Town Alexandria, is King Street and Washington Street. So King Street and Washington Street cross right in the center of Washington. What an interesting collision, right?
Yeah, it's him coming from fine English stock again. I think that's must be some influence from that.
Yes.
I sent you the details of one of the villages in our province that has that is the original kind of Washington family, original Wharton in Lancashire. They have a big, strong connection there to the Washington family, and I'm sure you found that interesting. And it was purely accidental that cropped up. So it's nice to see that there's influences on either side of the pond that may have come from different angles, shall we say? So yes, it would be interesting to see what happened with that. It's been a fascinating hour, Shawn. It really has, and I see from a lot of the comments that are coming in just how much of a interest there has been in the building and people wanting to go and visit. And someone referred to it as a kind of bucket list thing, which I suppose is that a common feeling? Do you kind of have I don't want to say kind of a place of pilgrimage for American Masons, but is it a place of pilgrimage for American Masons?
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Many people, I can't tell you how many times I've met an elderly Mason who will come through the door, buy a ticket. I'll start chatting with them, and he'll say, I've been a Mason for 40 years or 50 years or something, and I've always wanted to come to this place, and I can't believe I'm finally here. Because see, this is the only Masonic temple in the United States that we're divided. We don't have a United Grand Lodge of the United States. Okay, what they would call a general Grand Lodge. The Grand Lodge of Ohio is sovereign and distinct from the Grand Lodge of Florida, from New York and California and DC and so on. So we don't have a lot of big national Masonic projects. This is it. So it's not just a beautiful place in DC, it's a place that you have some connection to. Every American Masonic initiate, some amount of their application fee comes here. So every American Mason is at a basic level as a financial supporter of the place, at least in that one moment, right? And hopefully in an ongoing way. But so it's a place that the ownership of this building is really distributed to all the Grand Lodges and all the members of the Grand Lodges. And this is a Masonic, this is our hub, right? But it's still a hub that many people have never been able to personally visit. So people do make pilgrimages here for certain.
Just something's just occurred to me. What year was the memorial completed again?
Well, the exterior of the building was completed in 1932. However, the interior took much longer. Because of the Great Depression and then the Second World War, not much was done here until after the Second World War was over. Then Masonry returned its attention to this place. And through the 40s, 50s, and into the 1960s, the building was completed.
That's just what I was thinking in terms of, we're talking, Great Depression time here, aren't we? So, the commitment to the building from the Masons back at that time was immense. I mean, much more so than, kind of under, in inverted commas, normal circumstances.
That's absolutely right.
Fantastic. Shawn, we're going to say goodbye to the YouTube channel. If you have enjoyed the presentation on there, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'm sure we'll see you back with something else on YouTube very soon. So we'll say goodbye to YouTube just now. And they've gone. So Shawn, it's been an absolute delight to have you here, and I've posted the link a few times for the fundraising, and I do hope that people will take advantage of that. There's a couple of comments in there. I'm just reading the one from John Kettlewell. I'm just seeing if it's a question or a comment. It's just a comment. Thank you very much for your time today. I'm going to hang around and answer any kind of procedural questions that may have cropped up. We've had some news over here in terms of reopening and kind of easing of lockdown and stuff, and some questions may arise from that, and also some other new regulations have come out. But Shawn, thank you very much for your time today. It's been absolutely fantastic. I hope to see you and speak to you in person sometime in the not too distant future. And just on behalf of the province of West Lancashire and all the brethren present, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much. It's really been an honor. Take care, brethren.
Thank you. So, brethren, thank you very much for your time today. Next week, coming up, we're going to slight change of tack. The Graham Fulford Trust, these are the people that do the PSA testing at the large provincial meetings. Graham Fulford himself is coming to come and talk about the trust and why it was set up, and also how people can best look after themselves and the importance of PSA testing. And I know that means a lot to an awful lot of the people here as well. So there is the opportunity for them to learn more about that, learn more about the trust, but also kind of things that you can do and things that you can look out for. In a few weeks after that, there'll be another session looking at kind of different aspects of men's health as well, just so that, we'd appreciate that, people may be feeling a bit sluggish at the moment. So it's just something that we wanted to focus on as well. So that's coming up. As usual, I'm going to hang around now and just answer any questions which may crop up if you have any. Other than that, I shall see you all next week.